So can you tell us a little bit about wall thickness and why that's important for permanent mold casting?
Well, it's really one of the most crucial parts of the casting process is the wall thickness that you're solidifying, because that really defines how long the solidification is going to take.
Okay.
And if you have a heavy section right next to a very thin section,
Okay.
that thin section could freeze off and not permit the proper liquid metal fill before the solidification occurs.
Okay.
So you want to have gradual transitions between section thicknesses wherever possible.
Okay.
That's definitely one of the rule is to avoid those isolated thin or thick sections. If you go below the minimum wall thickness that our process is capable of, we'll end up with voids, likelihood of voids and areas that just aren't filling out, where the metal will freeze and leave a gap, often one that you could see daylight through, which we try to avoid having any of those that aren't designed into the part. There's a lot of chill in our process because we're using steel molds that can pull a lot of heat out of the aluminum swiftly. You want to make sure that you're backfilling that solidification with molten metal of enough sufficient volume that you actually fill it out and we get the solid metal where we need the solid metal. Does that sound clear enough?
I think so.
Okay.
You know, because from my perspective too, is if you leave too much, if you try to push a bunch of things through a small hole, you're going to end up not all the material's not going to make it through too, and you're not going to get fills.
Yeah,
so.
the risk of freezing off increases with how thin the section becomes. Yeah.
And I would assume too, more consistency in wall thickness helps with it filling out better too.
You bet.
So what happens if you do have a part that it requires a thinner section compared to the rest of the casting? Is there other methods you can do to achieve that?
There's fillets and radiuses that you can use, and you can use the proper sized fillets and radiuses for those transitions. Can make a big difference in the success of a casting.
Oh, cool.
If you have a really thin walled part, we can cast it thicker to obtain sound material in that area, and then machine it to your final requirements. Now there's a limit, some practical limits as to how thin you can machine materials too. But the other thing to keep in mind is that you want to avoid those big section thickness variations, especially when you're getting to those thinnest of castings. You want to make sure that you have gradual transitions in the part.